We offer career coaching. If you're not familiar with what a career coach does, our job is to help you succeed in your career. And the way we do that is through coaching. And what coaching means is there's phone calls, there's video streams, sometimes it's in person, where we work on specific issues about your career. That can everything be from resume reviews, career pathing, which is figuring out where you want to go next. A very popular one is salary negotiation. But it's anything that you want to help grow your career. We work with everyone from CEOs to people who are new grads with their first job. And salary negotiation is one of the most common things that we talk about. And so what we're going to talk about today is specifically getting more bread, getting more dough, which is super important for all of us. We all want to make more money. I'm going to try to wait for questions at the end if we can, if that's okay. But if you miss something I'm saying or you need me to repeat something, please speak up and let me know. And for those of you on Facebook, I'm not able to see the questions live right now, but we'll do our best. Hope this works for you. All right? So the first thing is, can you actually negotiate? And almost 99% of the time, you can always negotiate. Okay? A lot of this is about having agency, feeling like you have the power to negotiate. And sometimes when you get an offer, they'll say, oh, there's not any room on this. You bet that there's people who negotiate, right? Now, in some places, their companies are budget constrained, right? And they'll say, this is a standard offer, this is what we can, offer you. What I would say is, you're not a standard employee, right? You're not providing results that everyone else would. You're providing your special, amazing results as this wonderful employee that they're going to gain. And often, when you're a person of color or a woman, sometimes you get pushed back on for that. And I would advocate for you to be taking that strength to say, hey, I'd like to negotiate, right? You are completely welcome in doing it. It's very, very rare that someone will rescind an offer after you negotiate. It's actually pretty much unheard of and actually quite commendable. And the best thing is, when you're negotiating, you're usually working with the recruiter on that company's team. And the way to look at it is they want you to hire, or they want to hire, right? That's their job. Their job is to bring on people for their company. So it's collaboration, right? In any kind of negotiation, you're working together with someone. You're not just trying to fight someone, which also I think removes a lot of stress, right? So the HR team for that company is actually advocating for you. They actually want to give you more money and they want to make this work because believe me, it's much easier hiring and it's good for them, right? So treat it as a collaboration. It's super important. It's not a battle, it's not a fight. And that kind of, I think, removes a lot of pressure, right? Don't think about it as like, oh my God, I gotta fight this person to get my money. No. Everyone actually wants you to succeed, right? In negotiation, the biggest word is leverage. And whoever cares the least wins, okay? Now there's lots of ways to not care, right? One, if it's a bad deal, be willing to walk away. Now, anything I say here tonight, I want you to take into account your personal situation, right? If you need to have money, if you don't have any runway left, if you don't have any savings, obviously that's going to adjust for that, right? But the more that you're willing to walk away or the more leverage you can give yourself, the better deal you'll get, right? And a lot of times people get really emotional at that time, right? You're like, oh my God, I gotta pay my bills, I gotta pay my rent. And treat it like a business deal. When you go buy groceries at the store, you don't get emotional because the pomegranates cost too much. Actually, I do, I like pomegranates. But you don't get emotional about it. It's just business, right? It's just business. You're talking through a deal, like any other business deal. You're gonna talk through it calmly and rationally, right? And often people are worried that if I don't take this one deal, I won't find anything better. But actually what we've seen in negotiation, usually your first offer is not your best one, right? Generally, most things, the first time you do something is always not the best. So actually, the more offers you let move on until you find the right one, you actually get a better deal. That often happens, right? And people try to say, oh, I've been doing this in my career and I'm valued at this and this is where I should get. If you make it personal, it's going to be really painful, okay? It's not about your personal value, it's your value you bring to the company. So often in the conversation, you want to say things like, well, at my last company, I increased sales by 30% in 6 months. I would love to even beat that here. I'm going to double your sales, right? What value can you bring to the company? Because ultimately, the company's hiring you to make more money, and they'll pay you if you can make them more money, right? So you want to show your value, not your worth. Is that clear? Right? So don't make it emotional. Don't get, wrapped up in how you feel. But at the same time, you can stand up for yourself, which means just say, hey, this is my boundaries. This is where I'd like to have. This is where I'd like to go starting with, right? So whoever says a number first loses, right? This is a very common, this is a negotiation outside even salaries, right? You don't want to do the thing that says, someone says, hey, what's your salary range? And you say a number first. If they were thinking higher, let's say you said, oh, my number is 70, and they were ready to give you 90 because that's what their budget is, you just lost $20,000, right? So a couple of things in our favor. One, it is now illegal in California and 32 states to ask for your previous salary. So they cannot ask you, hey, what did you make before? Okay, that's really good for all of us. It levels the playing field. If someone is asking what your previous salary is, we'll talk through that situation. But what you want to do is say, hey, what is your budget? What is your range for this? At bigger companies like Facebook and Google and Apple, they have what's called levels. So you can be an L1 or E1 or E5. You can ask, hey, what level is this job? And those levels generally have salary bands. Like for L2, it's like 125 to 150. I don't know the numbers right now. But you want to know what level they are. Basically, if you say a number, you're pigeonholing yourself for where you can go, right? Sometimes they will push, right? They'll say, hey, no, but please, I'd like to know your range. I'd like to know where you're at. And you can't really give a range without knowing what the job is. So what are my responsibilities? Do I have any direct reports? Who am I reporting to? What is the total compensation package? What is the benefits I'm going to get, right? You generally want to get data from them. And generally in a negotiation, employees or job seekers are a mismatch because we have less information. You bet every recruiter and HR manager going into a job negotiation, they know their number, they know their budget because they've been told this by their company. They already know their numbers. It's not like they don't know them, right? And generally what I would say is the number one time to make money is between jobs, okay? Data has shown if you're not switching jobs every 2 years, you're actually losing out on thousands of dollars, right? Raises, unfortunately, for most companies do not compare, right? A typical raise will be anywhere from, sadly, 1 to 5 to maybe, if you're lucky, 10%. But a new job, 20 to 30% raises are not uncommon at all, right? And so this is your chance to actually ask for more. What you want someone to have is sticker shock, right? When you actually do give a number, you want them to be like, ooh, that's a lot. Okay. And then you back that up with the value you bring, okay? Sometimes people get nervous about that number, right? How do I actually say that number? Oh, I can't ask for 100K. I've never asked for 100K before. A couple of clients we've worked with, it's really funny. Every single time they say the number and they're scared of it, no one's ever balked. No one's ever been like, oh, sorry, we can't do that. Generally, the fears we have in negotiation, we negotiate against ourselves, right? We're afraid to say a number. We're afraid to stick up for ourselves. We're afraid to say these numbers, and we end up negotiating ourselves because we get something low. Also, if someone asks you about your salary requirements, do not give a range. Don't say, hey, I'm open to 145 to 160, because what number are they going to pick? 145, right? You have a single number that you want to have in mind, right? So in order to move that number, you want to create leverage, okay? So leverage means the ability to move things, right? The number one way to create leverage is other offers, okay? If you're an engineer, that's very easy to do. If you're in an in-demand position like PM, if you have a great pedigree, unfortunately, in the Bay Area, that does matter. Like you've worked at Google or you've worked at Apple, pedigree can make a really big impact. And you have a discussion about this. Hey, I'm talking to a few other companies. I'd love to move forward with this, but I need to do right by them and see what they have for me, right? I have an interview scheduled next week. Be honest in that, right? Don't make up offers, because that's actually even worse. But the best thing to do is create multiple companies saying, hey, I want to hire you.
and then you can pit them against each other. And this happens, by the way, all the time, right? There are people who make lots of leaps and bounds in their salaries by saying, now, certain positions this is easier at, okay? As we all know, tech is king right now in the Bay Area, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. Engineers have a lot of leverage, right? It's a skill set they have. But when a company's working with you to hire you, you have leverage. They want to hire you, right? And you have to show them how valuable you are, okay? It's okay to talk to them about that you're in the process with others. You're not going to hurt their feelings, right? They know this. Everyone's trying to get a job. Everyone's trying to get ahead. Don't be afraid of saying, I'm talking to other companies. I have another interview Wednesday. Don't tell them much more than that, right? Don't tell them the whole story like, oh, this is how I feel about the job. Don't do that. Just say, hey, I'm having things going on. A forcing function is something like, so I have to respond to the other company by Friday. Can you get me an offer by then? Right? That's a forcing function, right? You're using someone else. Typically, you'll see this in a used car dealership. Someone will be like, let me talk to my manager in the back. There's no manager in the back. They're just using that time to get you to move, okay? And also, the biggest point in creating leverage, be really, really good, okay? Whatever skill set you have, whether it's design, engineering, product management, PR, customer support, be really good at it. And know that you're good at it and get better at it all the time. Put your 10,000 hours in, right? Do the work, right? And I'll say the best kind of hiring, why do companies hire? They usually hire specialists, right? As a small company, you want to say, oh, now I need a front-end engineer, or now I need a customer support. You're hiring someone who's a specialist, and it's good for you to take one skill and be really, really good at it, okay? Unfortunately, this is where the market is. Smaller companies like brand new startups where they want more generalists, that can sometimes be helpful, but at any company over 20, size 20, they're looking to specialize. They're looking to hire someone who's like, hey, I not only want an operations manager, I want an operations manager who's worked in scooters, right? That's how specialists they'll get. And the more you're specialized, and the more skills that you can show that you have, and the more amazingness you can bring, the more leverage you'll have. So that is, out of all the points I'm saying tonight, that's probably the most important one, because how do you earn more money? How do you earn more money? Be really good at what you do, all right? Am I going too fast? Is this good? Okay, great. So in an offer, there's usually 4 parts, okay? Cash is what we call salary. It's how much you make per hour per year. Bonus is in 2 forms, the sign-on bonus and the yearly bonus. We'll go into that more in details. Equity for lots of companies. For pre-launch or pre-IPO companies, that can be in the form of options. For companies like Facebook, that can be in the form of RSUs, which is restricted stock units. By the way, this PDF or the presentation will be available on Hireclub later. And then benefits. Benefits can be everything wrapped up into healthcare, which is a big one, medical, vision, dental, up to funny benefits like, foosball at the office, which I don't really understand. Ping pong I do though. Ping pong is a great benefit. Anyway, you have to pick what's most important to you, okay? And generally, cash is king, right? The salary you get is the most important. So you want to move that number as high as possible. Typically, they'll say things like numbers like 80, 90, 125, 200, whatever the numbers are. They say, your cash is 125. We'll do a signing bonus of, 25, and the yearly bonus is 10, whatever. So cash is the most important one. It's also the hardest one to move if you don't have leverage, right? Because typically, sometimes they are limited by those things. They can say we only have a certain amount of cash in our range that we have, but that's the one you want to push on the most. Now, bonuses, there's 2 kinds, sign-on bonus and performance bonus. The sign-on bonus, push for that as much as you can, right? Typically, you'll see it values anywhere from 5, 10, 20K for a sign-on bonus. The higher you get, the more bonus you'll try to get. Typically, a 10% of the salary is a good range, 10 to 20%. So if you're hiring at a 100K job, 10K to 20K bonus is not unheard of, okay? I'm going to say something really different than most people. Equity is worth 0, okay? Let's do the math. 92% of startups fail. Even Hireclub could be that one day. Hope not. And a lot of companies will offer a large amount of equities. You'll see it on Angel List. They'll say 0.5%, which you'll get over 4 years. But what they don't tell you with equity is as they raise more money, that 0.5% turns into point nothing percent, like very, very small, right? So the bigger the company gets, the less equity you have. It's called dilution. It happens to everyone, not just you, but unfortunately, as an employee, you're going to have the most dilution, okay? And it's a gamble, right? If you're getting equity as an offer, you have to treat yourself like an investor. Like any other investor would say, okay, how much money have they raised? What is their business prospect like? Are they going to actually be around in 5 years? Who's the founding team? Who funded them? You have to do all the work a real investor would. There's a great guide called the Holloway Guides to Equity. I'll send a link out later on Hireclub. It's wonderful. It goes into details. Equity can be really complicated, but typically means you'll have 4 years vesting, which means in 1 year you'll get 25%, and then every year afterwards you'll get, or every month afterwards you get 1/48 until you have the full 4 years of vesting. And unfortunately, startup employees gain the least through equity versus founders. It's just a reality. I know everyone says, hey, join my startup, we're gonna make billions. It's happened a good amount of times in the Bay Area, but that's still really rare in terms of overall thing. So if someone's putting equity in front of you, be really clear, right? I would generally push for more salary than equity. And generally the bigger the company is, the more salary can make an impact. Now, that all said, we've had some negotiations in the last few weeks for people getting hired at Uber and Lyft and Slack. Now, these are known rockets, okay? These companies are about to IPO. Get that equity. Get in there, get that equity, okay? Now, how do you know that you're out of Slack 5 years before you're out of Slack? You don't know. It's very hard to tell. It's almost impossible to tell. But if you see someone who's about to IPO and you read the financial news because you follow the stocks and all that kind of stuff, that's a great thing to get. If you're getting equity at a company. Now, a company like Facebook, which is what they'll give you is restricted stock units. What that is they're actually giving you stock as part of your bonus, as part of your compensation. And that can be really great too, especially if the stock is going up, right? Which most companies, unless you're Snapchat, they are. So I think I covered everything. Yeah. So yeah, due diligence like an investor. If you're not sure about equity, if you're not sure about any of this, book a session with us. But talk to someone more experienced with equity before you say, it's important. Sometimes what a company will do is say, okay, we offer 120K, but if you take 5% equity, we'll do 80K. They'll try to balance the salary versus equity. Here's how you do the math. I don't have the right in front of me, but let's say you were doing 100K and the equity is worth, let's say 10%. The company sells for $10 million later. Sells for 10 million 8 years later. Okay, divide your equity is 10%, you got 1 million, let's say, if that's actually going to happen, which is rare. You divide 1 million by 8. That's how much money you made every year. So sometimes if your salary is higher, it's actually better to keep the higher salary. Does that make sense? Right? So just be really careful with equity. I know everyone wants to promise it. I know you've seen startup founders, including myself sometimes, be like, hey, this is the next big thing, card flick, digital business cards. No. Chikoti knows about that one. Oh yeah, we talked about this. Okay. So the best way to increase your cash is knowing exactly what the position's offering. The best thing is being a manager or a position where you can have direct reports, where you're having a lot of responsibility. The way you know your worth is sites like PayScale, Glassdoor, and also your previous income, so you can do the calculations. Know your budget. This is an important one, especially for people who are moving to areas like the Bay Area. Like, you could get a job that pays 120K in the Bay Area versus a 90K job in Austin. Guess where you're making more money? In Austin, because the cost of living is so high. So if you're moving somewhere, you gotta look at cost of living as well. So know your budget. And in your budget, keep into account, high tax rates. Keep into account if you're at a new job, whatever commute cost you might have. Some people can add in $500 a month of commute costs, right? So just keep in mind, and also the stress cost of whatever new commute you're doing. I think we already go over this. Here's a point I'll make. I mentioned about moving jobs every 2 years. What's great right now is we are in a seller's market. That means that you, as the person getting hired, you actually have a lot of power right now. The unemployment rate is actually negative or something, whatever it is right now. There's a lot of people wanting to hire, right? There are more jobs available than there are people to fill them. So it's actually good. It's actually really good, right? But you don't owe loyalty to anyone, okay? Upset yourself. You are owed money, okay? At the end of the day, negotiations is a transaction. You're trying to get the most out of that transaction. Do your best, right? Sometimes people will say, hey, if you're really passionate, you'll take more equity. Or if you really care, stick around for 4 years. You know, the reality is they're gonna make money off of you, right? So do your best to get as much as you can, as much as you feel good about it, right? Now, in all negotiations, something that can be important is removing stress. Like I was talking to a negotiation client today, and she said, hey, I actually don't want to negotiate right, any more than this because I'm stressed about it. It's like stressing me out. And I said, look, that's fine too, right? A few hours of stress can take years off your life. Let's not, you know, if you're not wanting to stress, that's okay too. Reality is, in a year or so, you'll find another job, and you'll get that raise that you wanted anyway, right? So just keep that in mind in that balance. Bonus and relocation, these are super important. Many bonuses, when they offer you, are based on performance, which means they're not guaranteed. And this is why companies will do sometimes. They'll say, okay, here's a 90K salary with a 10K performance bonus. That performance bonus might not be up to you. It might be how the team performed. It might be how somebody else performed. Sometimes it's up to you, which is good, but there's not a guarantee, right? They weren't trying to keep their cash costs down, and their bonus is kind of like up in the air, right? And I'm sure, as you've heard, sometimes it's really hard to get that bonus. Companies will make a promise, you won't get that. There's both an annual and a sign-on bonus that I'm talking about. The annual is a performance. You can always ask for a sign-on bonus. Here's the perfect email after you get the offer. Hey, what is the sign-on bonus for this? Not is there a sign-on bonus, what is the sign-on bonus? Just a simple question, right? Nice and easy. Don't put any numbers in their head because you could say, hey, I want a bonus of 10, and they were gonna give you a bonus of 20, you screwed it up, right? I almost did that. If you're relocating at all, cross-country or anything like that, it's often 5K, 10K or more. Always ask for relocation. If a company says they're not willing to pay relocation and you're moving a long distance, I would really question that company, right? If they want you that bad where they want you to move, which is literally $10,000, right? Even when I moved from Seattle, DC in 2003 when the economy was dead, I still got relocation. It was not a lot, but I still got it, right? And so you can always advocate for relocation, which is moving costs, truck costs, sometimes even renting apartments. Again, whatever you advocate for, hotel and housing stays are important. And sometimes the bonuses in the annual or performance bonus can be given as RSUs or equity. They can say, hey, we'll give you 20,000 more shares or whatever it is. Oh, did we talk about equity here? No, we didn't. Okay. One thing about equity, don't just look for the number of shares. That number is meaningless. If someone says, hey, we're gonna give you 20,000 shares and that sounds like a lot, you have no idea what it sounds like. You wanna know the percentage. AngelList is really good about this. They'll show every job with the position and the pay and the equity percent. That's what you wanna know is the percent. How much? AngelList. AngelList is mostly startup jobs. Unfortunately, other jobs don't do it, but obviously AngelList is in that market. But remember, the number of shares is not important at all. You have to know what percentage those shares are of the company. Typically, unfortunately, unless you're joining on as an executive or higher, it's less than 1%, which is not that great at all, but that's kind of standard. You'll see things like 0.25%, 0.1%. Those are kind of very standard. If you're a senior engineer, you can get 1, 2, 3, 5% at very early stage companies. If you're joining on as a VP later stage, you can get that as well. But I'll tell you, it's still rare. You have to fight for it. You have to be very good. Again, 10,000, 20,000 hours of greatness. Okay, I think we covered that. So benefits. Benefits are typically stated as medical benefits. What most people care about is the health care. Usually dental and vision is not that big a deal. It's thrown in there. What you want to know is what percentage they pay for you and any dependents. Usually they'll express it as we pay 50 to 100%. If it's 0%, that's not great, obviously. And you also want to ask what the co-pays and things like that. And you can say, hey, what's your compensation package? What's your benefits package? They'll give you the info. They have this all written up. Sometimes it is out of their hand. You can't usually negotiate on benefits. They either exist and they're a certain level or they don't. It's very rare, only for CEOs or VPs of very big companies where the benefits are actually quite different. but most they're buying a block of plans, and everyone's getting a very similar plan. That's how it's so cheap for you. You end up if it's like 100%, and I'll be honest, as we all know, healthcare is extremely expensive. The company might be paying $600 a month. That's a big benefit. That's a huge benefit. And also with the way healthcare plans work, their $600 plan is a better plan than you can get on your own for $600. Okay, so be aware that healthcare in the way the U.S. market works is actually one of the best things that private companies offer. It's one of the best benefits you can have. A great company will also pay for dependents, including spouses or significant others and children, right? It is becoming rarer and rarer, but companies still do this. And you'll know people stay at companies for a long time. Like Cisco is a good example. They give great benefits. They give really great benefits. Sometimes benefits kick in later. They don't kick in on day one. Like you'll get your salary day one, but they'll wait 90 days to kick in the benefits. And that's normal. Don't be freaked out about that. They want to make sure you're going to stick around before they start giving those benefits, right? 90 days is usually considered the trial period for any job anyway. Look at the deductibles though. This will get most people. You might get a really great signing. Oh, we pay 100%, and the deductible is like $5K, which means you're still out of pocket $5K. Now, there's other healthcare benefits like HSAs, which are healthcare savings plans, and a bunch of other complicated things. You want to talk to someone about that before you go into it. Generally, HR is pretty good at explaining it, and most of those things are pretty beneficial. They're saving you tax dollars, basically. An HSA is saying, I'm going to put aside X amount a month for medical. I'm not going to get taxed on that income. So you're saving 35, 25, whatever percent from taxes. So that's always great as well. Okay. Well, that's me, obviously. The most important thing is trust your gut. Okay. Salary negotiation can be a painful process. It can be a very nerve-wracking process. You're deciding your salary sometimes for yourself, sometimes for your family. You have to realize you're deciding something that's going to affect you for the next year or so, right? Up to 2 years or more. Anytime someone's trying to force you to respond, always say, I need the weekend to respond. Or you can pull the used car salesman, I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my family before I can respond, right? You can do that. You can use the same tactics, right? If someone gives you an exploding offer, which is like something like, hey, this offer is only valid for 3 days, honestly, that's just lame. It's just really lame. Most people are not doing that these days. Some, unfortunately, people who just are not aware are still doing that. I would say walk away, because why would you want to work with someone that says, hey, this offer is only valid for like 3 days? At the same time, don't wait like 3 weeks to respond to an offer, okay? That's a long time, all right? So anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks is the normal time to respond, right? Both on your end and the company's end, by the way. Both need to be having a good response time. Glassdoor, asking current employees, those are all great ways to get more information about the actual mechanics of the company and how it's like to work. Sometimes offers can sound really great on paper and you find out it's a hell place to work. Glassdoor is generally pretty good about, stuff. We have a 5-star review on Glassdoor. Thank you very much. And the other thing is beneficial is when you are switching jobs and you're getting a new salary, I say take what I call a job moon. Don't say your start date is 2 weeks from now. Say it's 1 month from now. Take those 2 weeks off. If you can. If you can afford it, if you get a bonus, even better, that's great. Take some time to relax, right? Because unfortunately, in the US world, we get very little vacation compared to the rest of the world. We get 2 weeks. The German standard is 6 weeks. I had a friend who took a 6-month vacation. He said that amount of vacation is the same amount of vacation that people get in 20 years, okay? So a job moon is a wonderful thing. Replenish yourself, right? We're not here to work ourselves to death. We're here to enjoy our lives and work on things we believe in. And obviously, there's exceptions to everything. Whatever situation you might be in, there might be specifics. If you need help on that, you can call us, book a session. I'll give you an example. It costs $99 for a 30-minute session with me through salary negotiation. The last one I did, I got the person a 45K raise. Right, now that's atypical. 10K is usually our average that we can get in there, but it is absolutely worth the investment, right? What I say in interviews, I say this very often, it's a $100,000 meeting. Most salaries in the Bay Area are going to be close to or around 100,000, whether it's 1 or 2 years. How much are you going to invest in that $100,000 meeting, right? Sometimes when I go to a job interview, I buy a new shirt. That's $50, right? Like I want to look good for the job interview. I want to feel great. So invest in your career. You can invest with us if you feel great about it. You can also post in our group and ask questions, but oftentimes we can't give specific answers to your specific situation because we don't know all the details, right? So that's why I always advocate, feel free to use us as a coaching platform to help you figure this out. And that's the end. Oh, thank you. Thank you.